Quad had some good bloody campaign. I love that one where you had to carry
Before we do too much, what we have to do is examine the tools carefully and make sure that they're suitable for the job. So this one I'm squaring up with the side of the board, and I can see that there's a lot of movement in that particular square. It's moving almost 3 or 4 millimeters from one end to the other, so there appears to be a bent section here. I'm going to put that to the side and have a look at a second T-square. The second T-square has virtually no movement, and I'm holding them hard up against the side of the board when I'm doing that. So be careful of that. If the T-square is damaged, don't use it. The other thing is that the squares are often dirty, and if you run a damp cloth over the edge before you start, you're going to get a lot of dirt off the T-square. And again, on the bottom of the T-square, just give it a good clean with a damp bit of cloth, and you'll get a lot of dirt off that square. Not too worried about the sides over here, because that's going up hard against the board. Don't put the wet cloth anywhere near the board or near your paper. Have a dry cloth handy to wipe that down with after you've cleaned it. And even there, you still see there's a fair bit of dirt on that paper.
How come they use wood ones, not like metal or plastic or something?
Well, they do. There again, look at all that dirt coming off that T-square. If I was to use that without cleaning it, that would be all over the drawing, and that would be the last thing I want. So now that we've determined that the T-square is suitable for the work, the drawing board seems to be serviceable. It has a lot of pit marks and holes in it. It's time to go ahead and square up the paper on the drawing board. So to do that, I'll put the T-square hard up against the edge and come down, and I want to line the paper up with the T-square. While the T-square is hard up against the edge, I want to line the paper up with that T-square. And then I'm going to get some masking tape and just put it very lightly over each corner of the drawing.
All four or just top?
Just the top, like that. And then anywhere where I slide that T-square now is going to be square with a piece of paper, providing I'm holding it very tight against the edge of the T-square. So now that we've done that, it's time to go ahead and start doing the borders on our A3 paper. The pencils you should be using for these drawings are just an HB and a 2H. The 2H is for the fine guidelines. Yes. Just like I cleaned the T-square before, anything else that I use on the drawing I'm going to clean, because these are really dirty. Especially these ones I've taken from the store today, and they're of an unknown quantity, so I'll clean both sides, and I'll clean the edges especially. You see there, they're very dirty. Got oil from hands and carbon from pencils. Not only that, but the ruler as well. Any rulers that I use on the page, I'll clean. Good clean as well. And then, like before, I'll wipe them down with a clean cloth before I start. And, at least that way we minimise the amount of dirt that we get on the page. Be with you in a second. So we've gone ahead and we've done the border lines, or at least we've done the dimensions for them. We've come down 7mm on the top, up 7mm from the bottom, in 10mm from the edges. Now, one thing you need to know with doing a drawing, you never ever move the T-square down to the top or the bottom or the top of the drawing board. Always keep the T-square hard against the edge of the drawing board. And then when you want to do a vertical line, make sure you've got a large enough set square. Don't go and buy some little tiny set square. You can only do tiny work. If you buy a big one, you can do tiny work and you can do big work as well. So here we go. There's the left-hand border done. 10 millimeters in, 7 millimeters down. We do that border all the way around, and then we'll proceed to do the name box in the bottom right-hand corner.
Crazy, it's all about like.
Now that we've got the borders done on the sheet, it's time to go ahead and think about putting the name box down in the corner. And this is what the finished name box will look like, and we'll have a date in it, and we'll have some other details about the drawing. The dimensions for the name box I've given on a handout, and the dimensions are shown here. It's 150 millimeters wide by 45 millimeters high. So I'll go ahead and I'll draw that now. The drawing shows here that I have a line starting 15 millimeters up from the edge, and another 15 millimeters past that. So 45 divided up into 3 lots of 15. Again, I've come in 45 millimeters from the left-hand edge, and I've done a vertical line up there.
Oh, give it my best shot.
Give it a fair shot, that would be so
Guarantee you're going to get diabetes.
But you're going to get a no.
Can we keep the noise down a little bit, people? If you're being so noisy, you're probably not being productive. We're 10 millimeters down from the top of the box with the next dimension. So I'll simply put a mark for that, and then the beauty of having a T-square is that we can come and sit the T-square on that dot, and then we're going to get a nice square edge, exactly the right dimension down from there. So there's the name box done. It only took a few seconds to draw that name box on there. And while I've got the name box up and I'm working in the name box, I'll go ahead now and I'll think about doing some detail in that name box. I need about 6 millimeter guidelines on here, and I'll do them with a 2H pencil. I won't press harder with the 2H pencil just because it's a softer, harder lead. I don't want to make the guidelines very strong. The name of this project is a GAL project, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write that in those two guidelines.
It's like one of the. You get a new club, right? cold, so it's hard. Yeah, it literally was hard. And we could barely eat it.
And the name of the institution, I'll put up the top as well. I won't bother using the lighter pencil, I'll just use the HB and put those lines a bit softer. It's Western Sydney Institute, WSI. There's a few potholes in the drawing board. A pencil just fell into one of those potholes. Disadvantage of using some of these boards which have done a lot of work over the years. They've got compass marks in them and all sorts of little marks in them, so that's what caused that T to be a little bit deflected there. And there'll be some other details in here as well. Certainly the name goes in this box here. So my name in here.
Interrupting.
Just a moment. Alright, now you can see I've done that on purpose. I've started too far in from the edge and I couldn't fit my name in, so I've had to put the E over there. Make sure that you do not do that on your drawing. Make sure that you start far enough over towards the left hand side. Just think about what you're going to write before you start writing it, and then you shouldn't have that sort of a problem. Looking at the drawing that we've got, we can see that the dimensions here for this 2:1 drawing will be 103 millimeters high by, well, it's 280 millimeters to this point here, and we'd have to look down to this other drawing, 327 millimeters we need for the overall length. So I'm going to have to make sure I fit that high enough up in the top left hand corner of the page to make sure that I can fit the front elevation underneath it. I've just done the vertical side at 103 millimeters, and now I'm mapping out that 327 millimeter line. So I've used the T-square to come along, and I'm continually cleaning the T-square too, because it does have a lot of grubby stuff underneath, and I did notice it's starting to put some marks on the drawing here, which is a bit of a shame. I need to mark out 327, but the set square only goes to 200, so I'll need to put a mark at 200, and then I need to come down a bit further, and I can put a mark at another 127, because we need 327. And then I'll use the T-square to come along to that mark. Everything being done with the T-square. The T-square is the secret to getting a drawing done correctly. So now I can come up off this far end. I'll use the set square and I'll come up vertically, and then I know where my 103 was from the other side of the drawing, so I can put the T-square on that, and then I can come across to that point there, and that then gives me my entire plan view for the drawing. Now I'll go ahead and I'll think about doing some dimensions. I can use stacked edge reference dimensions on the side, but I want to use superimposed running dimensions edge referenced on the bottom, because I do have a front elevation to fit in here against some fold lines. So I don't want to crowd myself into stacked dimensions that come down the page. So again, T-square over here, and then time to map out some of these dimensions off my drawing. So I've got first line at 47 millimeters up, so I'll mark that out. I've got another one at 69, and then I've got the 103. So, come out with each of those with a small vertical line. And then using the set square, and then I'll be able to label each one of those. Now, labelling those, it's nice to have some guidelines as well. So the first one is 47 millimeters. We don't need to write the mm because all technical drawings are in millimeters. The second one, with a bit of a guideline on there, is 69. And I've gone a little bit close to the edge here, so be careful with that. The overall size is 103, and that shows clearly that it comes up there. So I've got 103 to the top, I've got 69 to there, and I've got 47 to there. But we've made one little mistake. Now, this drawing is in 2:1, and although we've doubled the size of the dimensions to draw it, we don't put the double size dimensions on the drawing itself. So I'm going to go and correct that. That 47 has to come back to be 23.5. And that would be what you'll do it on the fabrication itself. The 69 is going to have to be 34.5. And the 103 will be 51.5. So that 47 has to go, the 69 has to go, and the 103 has to go. Be careful. Now, the superimposed running dimensions. Probably would have been nice to do it there, because I wouldn't have had that problem of going too close to the border and cramming everything in. Superimposed running dimension, I only have one line going along. I have the first break at 50 millimeters. Then I have one at 119. Notice, unlike architectural, I'm not moving the rule each time and duplicating the error throughout the job. I'm working edge referenced to each point. So 200, I've got one, and I've got one at 280, so I need to add 80 to that 200. So I'll put the dimension line in, right to the end, and then I'll put a circle on this end that represents that it is superimposed running dimensions. And then just break that line.